Hi, Roger Hance again with Ambitious Broker, and welcome to this episode. Today I'm going to be interviewing a fellow by the name of Bernie Gallerani. He's out of Nashville, Tennessee, and someone I had an opportunity to go back and actually examine his business and how he does things. Started about 20 years ago in the business, and he instantly had some success as a salesperson, started building a team. He was doing a couple hundred transactions a year. He's up around 700 transactions a year now. But to hear him talk about his growth, his evolution, and the way he's built some systems and so forth, I think you'll find very interesting. And so sit back and enjoy this. If you got comments, please send them to me. And let me know what you think about Bernie. Good luck to you. Take care. Welcome, everybody. And I'm here with Bernie Gallerani. I said that wrong.
Any way you want to say it, Roger. I'm all about it.
Bernie Gallerani, and I need to tell everybody, Bernie is from Nashville, Tennessee, and was gracious enough to allow me with a mutual friend to come visit him maybe 5 years ago, or six maybe even.
Might have been even 6 or 7 years ago, buddy. I'm not sure how long ago that was.
I don't remember either. But the thing that was so impressive was, of course, you were doing a couple hundred sales a year at that point. And I think you had a group of about 4 or 5 people, 4 people, I think, agents and some staff and your wife. And then all of a sudden you bumped that to about a sell a day is what I think I recall. And you were working at Remax. You were a little remote, but I was amazed, of course, at your production, amazed at your attitude. But I was really more amazed that you'd let someone that you only heard about come and visit you and interview every person who worked for you.
Yeah, but that's where I got to know you. Had I known better, I wouldn't have let you come. But I'm not just messing. That's because you came from a friend who said that Roger's a really good guy. So my friend was a good guy. So I figured if he's hanging out with a guy named Roger and he says he's a good guy, then I got to let him in.
Yeah. And so, but when I got there, I was so impressed because I talked to your buyer's agents particularly, and I got a chance. I mean, you were so transparent with your system. And so when I sit and I remember leaving, talking to Rod, our mutual friend, and saying, it's a perfect setup. It's a perfect setup that you had. And by that, I just simply meant that in any sales organization, and this is an industry right now, Bernie, that in a whole has lost the professional science of selling and marketing. There's a lot of it going on, but few people do it very well. And man, I was so impressed with how well you did what you did. And to talk to every one of your people and to get a chance of seeing how they do what they did, how they interacted with you. You had a sales manager at the time who was involved, a great system. And I want to go over some of that today and, of course, talk about where you've gone since then, because at that time you were a Remax agent and you had to be one of the top 5 or 6 in the country, I would think. At some point, did you reach number 1? You had to be up there.
No, I think the best that I got with Remax was number 11 in this country and then 27th in the world or something. And that was probably 4, 5, 6 years ago. I've been an independent broker owner now of my team for the last couple of years. But when I was with Remax, I don't know if that's really a testament to the hard work I did or the lack of production other agents.
No, man. I know it's
really sure.
Not just hard work, man, but brilliant the way you approached it and your thinking. And like I said, I'm not impressed often, and that's the truth. And I've seen a lot in all these years, but it was just set up right. People seem to have the right attitudes, but I'm a little surprised that it wasn't number 1. So maybe you're slacking a little bit. Maybe I need to be coaching you a little, give me a little smack on the behind.
Well, there's probably no doubt I slack a little bit, but yeah, there's no doubt that probably happens.
Yeah.
You know what? Listen, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I know that since we talked and you've gone on your own now as Bernie Gallerani Real Estate, right?
Yeah.
And you have now started increasing the size of your team, and you're up large now? 30 people or 20 some agents?
Got about 30 agents that are on my team today, and 15 or so administrative staff between what I have in the building. I have some overseas people also, but so yeah, it's pretty serious. But 45, 50 people helping to do the business, and it's really about the people. They're the ones that are pushing hard, making the sales happen, and it's really, Roger, more of a system today. It's coaching and training and lead distribution, holding people accountable through the coaching process. And so, yeah, so it got from selling houses to having some buyer's agents to then finding the passion to helping people in the real estate industry try to do it at a better level, and so, or do it at a higher level maybe. And so that's kind of how it all started.
Well, I think you last month, your team did 80 transactions, or what was the number? Do you remember?
Well, we're still in this month right now, but yeah, we pended 84 transactions in March, and we are pacing for over 90 pendings here in April.
90. So even
it depends on what closes. There's
sure, but openings and
some stuff falls out. You have a 20% or so fallout rate of all that, but typically 60, 70 closed transactions a month.
But see, that's of course that's inhuman as an individual salesman. But then you expand it into a team, and even as a team, you're averaging 3 sales per person per month in a world that barely averages 3 sales per person per year. So,
correct.
I mean, it's incredible across the board there, what you're doing. But let me back up a little bit, because I'd like to know how you grew into that. You started as a salesman, and did you start at RE/MAX?
I did. Yeah, I started selling with RE/MAX in 2005, when I moved to here from Las Vegas. I lived in Las Vegas. Actually, I lived in California, and so I was in California for my whole life, and then I moved to Vegas when I was in my early 20s. Lived there for 10 years, and then got in the real estate business, or didn't get in the real estate business until I got here, but left Vegas and moved to Tennessee and got in the real estate business. And in 05, and so I sold in 05, and I was just a regular agent like anybody else, right? And but before I started selling, in December of 04, I signed up for Mike Ferry coaching through the Mike Ferry organization. And then so they kind of just laid out a path for me to how to be successful. If it really wasn't for the coaching, I don't think I would have ever, did anywhere near what I had done. I don't even know if it was so much the skill that I learned with Mike Ferry organization, or it was that being around all the high producing people that inspired me to then to be better. So I just did the MFO system and worked really hard, and built my business up to about 150 home sales a year personally. Had a couple of buyer's agents doing another 50 or 60. So we were doing a couple hundred, and that's when you and I got a chance to meet. So we thumped that pretty hard for about 15 years. And then, I just wanted a challenge in my life. So I just thought, well, I'll try to, bring another agent in and kind of train people. And so it's gotten to now the last 9 or 10 years where we're just bringing agents in, we're lead providing, we're coaching, we're training, we're holding accountability measures to those agents at whatever levels we can. And then, my ultimate goal is to have all the agents experience a financial opportunity that I was able to experience. You mentioned it a minute ago that the per person productivity in real estate is pretty pathetic, to be truthful with you. It's about 3 or 4 sales a year. And so I wanted to just train people through how I learned through the Mike Ferry organization, and to teach them to be more accountable and to be more committed to their schedule and writing a schedule and giving them opportunity to have a business that was more than what the community of real estate agents were typically doing. So we just kind of brought them into our ecosystem and find the right people that fit inside the ecosystem and then watch them grow. And so that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, I want to talk to you some about the right people and so forth. But let me back up again. So when you first met Mike, or you first got in the business, you were instantly at Mike Ferry.
Yeah.
Almost right away.
I signed up for coaching before I started selling real estate. So I started in January and I signed up with Mike in December. So I paid my fee, I gave my credit card, whatever, and then I had a coach. And I didn't even really know what to do. I didn't have any sort of direction. And then the coach just said, "Hey, this is step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what I want you to do." And then every week I'd have a coaching call, and he'd say, "Did you do these 4 or 5 things?" And I'd say yay or nay, I would or didn't do it. And then they would just teach me things to be successful. And I probably had some sort of a natural talent in it, but my first 7 months, I had 27 closed and probably another 10 or 12 pending. And so because of that early level of success that I had in that 7 months, when I went to my first event, which was the Superstar Retreat in Palm Desert, California in 2005, I didn't realize that I was doing anything special, Roger, because I just did what my coach told me to do. And they invited me on a rookie panel on stage. And so my coach actually calls me in like May or June or something and says, "Hey, are you interested in going up on stage at this Mike Ferry Superstar Retreat?" I didn't really understand what that meant. I'd never been to a retreat before. And so I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know what that's all about." And they said, "Well, you're doing really well. Mike wants to have you on stage with some other people." I'm like, "Sure, I guess." I didn't know if that was good or bad. So, but soon as I went on stage and I was sharing with people the production that I had, people were like, "Wow, that's pretty amazing," right? To me, I was just doing the job the coach asked me to do, but to the rest of the audience and to a lot of people in the room, it was like, okay, well, this person's only been in the business for 7 months, and they got 27 closed already and a bunch of
Well, not only
pending.
that, 7 months, but you were in a brand new geographical area. You weren't in Vegas as a real estate agent, right?
No, I had just moved to this town. That's probably what made the story interesting, I guess, is because I had just moved to this little suburb of Nashville, and I knew one person here, which is how I ended up here. And then he just moved here, so he didn't know anybody. So I knew my friend, and he wasn't in the real estate business. But you know what I just did? I just did what I was told to do. My coach told me what to do. And I was a little concerned, Roger, to be honest with you, because I said to my coach, like on the very first call, I'm like, "Hey, I'm brand new. I don't know anybody, And my coach is like, "Well, don't worry about it. You're going to know a lot of people when I'm done with you. Like, a lot of people are going to know who you are." And so I ended up closing 40 transactions my first year. And I became the number 1 agent in my office in the first 12 months, which was really interesting, right? Agents were like, "Who is this person from Vegas? Like, what's he doing down there in his office?" But, and then I sold 53 my second year. And then I kind of stumbled around a little bit between the 50s and the 100 range for a few years. I built it slowly, was doing like 68 and then, 72. And then kind of it took me about 4 or 5 years to break 100.
You were mostly the only person signing contracts at that time, right? Agent. You didn't have team members at that time. You had some assistants of some sort, but
yeah, I actually hired a buyer's agent, and really the numbers I'm giving you are personal production. I had a buyer's agent early on within a year, and the reason why, within probably 6 or 8 months of, I think right after I got back from that retreat, I met somebody there and they said, "Do you have a buyer's agent? Do you work buyers?" I said, I've worked a couple of buyers. And they said, "Well, if you eliminated the buyers and you just had time for the listings, could you do more production?" And I said, "Sure." So I brought in a kind of a newer agent and just said, "Hey, I'm going to give you all my buyers." And that person did, 12, 13 transactions for me a year. And so that really wasn't part of my personal production, but I did give them some deals and paid them accordingly to that. But the reason I had a buyer's agent wasn't for my own padded production, is it really was to allow myself the time to get the listings, because the buyers, as I learned from Mike Ferry, buyers take time and listings take skill. And so I really wanted to work on the skill process of taking listings, and I didn't want all my time being drained taking buyers in my car and opening doors and doing all those kinds of things. So to answer your question, yes, I had a buyer's agent within that first year. But it really was not a part of my personal production. It was just whatever it is they did.
What was your background? What jobs did you have prior to real estate?
Yeah, so I was in audio electronics when I was in my 20s. I owned a company that was a wholesale satellite business, and I did that until I was in my early 30s. And then I went into franchise sales when I was in Las Vegas. And so I sold franchises around the country, but over the phone. So my skill, Roger, was mainly talking with people one-on-one and hardcore kind of wholesale kind of sales. And then the other second part of that, the franchise business, was talking to people over the phone. So being in real estate, and especially being with Mike Ferry, because Mike Ferry was all about calling people and communicating through scripts and skills, where there was a lot of people who get involved with MFO at that particular time. I'm sure it's still this way today, where they have what they call reluctancy, right? We're talking to people, they don't know what to say. I had a natural ability to communicate with people as a salesperson. I was a natural salesperson, whatever that means, where I didn't really have a lot of fear of trying to talk to somebody about their house, trying to solve the problem. I mean, all our job really is to an expired or to even a buyer or a buy owner or anything is to solve the problem that they have. Right? A buyer wants to find a house, got to solve the problem, find them a house. If you're a listing potential expired or buy owner, you had a home on the market as an expired, it didn't sell. My job was to solve the problem and cause it to sell. So it's really just educating myself in the communication style and how to make people feel comfortable that I had the solution to their problem. I guess to me, it didn't seem that difficult because I was a natural salesperson. But for a lot of agents, it's a challenge of getting them to communicate at a level that makes people feel good.
Right. What motivated you? Why? You crack? Because I know that feeling. I was a door knocker. I was a farmer, and when I started, and I spent a lot of years selling vacuum cleaners, newspaper subscriptions, Christmas cards. So I was very comfortable at the door talking to people. But I got to tell you, I still had reluctance. It was like I had to get started. I had to get in a car. I had to get to the farm area or where I was knocking. And once I was there, I was fine. But I got to tell you, getting from my seat in the office to the seat in the car sometimes wasn't so easy.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But that natural, that history of being at the door, like you, it sounds like was a real benefit, probably.
I mean, I think everybody has a set of fears or getting yourself motivated enough to get in the mood. But I had to do it, right? I mean, I had two young kids at home when I moved here. They were 8 and 10 years old when I moved here to Tennessee. But I think maybe I'll go a step further, which might go deeper into my why, right? So I grew up in HUD housing my entire life. So my mom was married 5 different times. We lived in a really poverty. When I say environment, I lived in a very wealthy environment because I grew up in Palm Springs, California. So I went to school where there was money and went to high school where there was money, but my mom was in HUD housing, right? I lived in a HUD housing complex where there was subsidized living. When I met my wife, I was 21. I met her in a bar. I was a bouncer in a bar at Doorman. We'll call it a Doorman because the Doorman sounds better. Roger, bouncer was
You're one of those guys. I've met people before.
Yeah, you met you before. And so there was a Tony Roma's up in Century City where Universal Studios is, and so I got a job there at $10 an hour being a bouncer in the bar. I just moved to LA, and my mom was married 5 times. I had basically she was a single parent because she married a bunch of interesting men. But anyways, I met this amazing person who was a waitress there, and she was going to college, and so I met her, and she had the brains and the fortitude to move her life forward, and I was just kind of trying to figure out my life. But I didn't know, I didn't even feel even worthy enough really to kind of be in that relationship, to be truthful with you, and all the baggage that childhood that I had brought with me. So anyways, they always say when you get a man who's motivated when he finds a better woman, right, to be motivated for. Yeah. And so I think that my life was, I got a really smart human being that actually accepts me. I better be better for her. Right. And I think that's what really kind of started my desire to be better as a person, was that I had someone that I could count on, that I didn't want to disappoint. And so, I then at an early age, once I met her and I married her, I was 24 years old when I got married. So I started dating her at 21 and I got married at 24. And so I got married pretty young and, no money, broke as all get out. And just wanted to prove to her that she married somebody worthy, So, and I think those that are hearing this can find that in themselves, that say, you just want to be better for somebody else. And so I think that she was my somebody else. And so I just started working really hard. And no matter how much fear I had at getting out of the car, let's say if I was selling vacuums or audio equipment, no matter how difficult it was, I had a responsibility and I had to bring money home for my wife and my rent and help contribute financially that way. And regardless of my background, what excuse do you have, right? And so I think that was born in early in my 20s, but I still floundered in my 20s. I had made some good money, probably, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year, maybe up and down in some of those financial stakes. But when I got into real estate, this is what's interesting. So I got into real estate when I was 38 years old. And I'll never forget this, almost, Roger, like it was yesterday. Because of my background and how hard I worked to prove something to myself and to be worthy enough for my wife and to be somebody who was responsible enough for this family, even though I made some money, I didn't really realize what money really was other than survival. Everything to me was survival, right? But I'll never forget this for the day I friggin' die. Is this what next thing that I'm saying? So I hired a coach. I worked really hard from January to May of 2005. And I closed my very first real estate transaction. So I had taken a few listings and they were by owners mainly and some expireds. And I closed my very first transaction in May of 05. So it took me 4.5 months from the time I started to the time I got paid the first time. And I remember the day of my closing, I listed the property for 4%. I gave away 3% and I took 1% on a $150,000 by owner. And I remember closing it that day on closing day. And I looked at my eraser, I had one of those little eraser boards, and I had 8 pendings. I closed this, I had 8 more pendings, and I had $35,000 that I was about to make. And I remember saying to myself, I don't even know what I'm doing yet. And yet I have $35,000 that I'm going to make in the next 30 days. And that triggered in my brain and I went crazy. And I was literally pending 12 to 15 homes a month after that. Just boom, 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 boom. And I just caught fire because I finally realized that the days of poverty were over. And from there, I never looked back. So I never looked back. And I made a funny pact to myself. I'm going to hear this is talk about stupid mentality of things. I used to be the guy that would go in and put $5 of gas in my car or $10 of gas in my car because I didn't have a lot of money, right? And I'll remember this forever. And I said, from this day forward, I will never not fill up my gas tank all the way to full.
That's funny.
And I have yet to this day ever not done that. I've always fall away. I don't care how expensive the gas is. Hey, I'm on the wrong side of town. It's too expensive. I'm going where it's cheaper. It's an interesting thing because when you grow up with the mentality that I had as a kid and you start getting to the point where you're like, I finally found my way out.
Right.
And real estate was that for me.
Man, I'll tell you, you're really touching some buttons for me because I can tell a very similar, kind of similar story. And those things, for one of the things for me was I was always punished as a child with gardening. It's like if my dad was pissed at me, it would be go dig some sort of, plants or go plant this or go mow the lawn or pull some weeds. So I grew up with this yard work and punishment were the same. And so to me, my gas story is the day that I said I'll never mow another lawn in my life, ever. And
That's so great.
it's like I've got a gardener. That was the ultimate sign of luxury and success for me, is I had some of the garden. And I'm so bad today that I don't want to even pick up my phone to call my gardener. It's like if a sprinkler head's not right or broken, I just get upset that it, it's broken. I'm not, why can't he figure that out? Why does it require a call from me? It's like, can't I just think this and him hear it? It's like, that's how much I hate it. So I really, we may have to sit down and cry together, because it starts to pull that in me, that.
It's interesting. I went on a cruise after I started making a little bit of money, took my family on a cruise, and I got back from the cruise, and my coach said to me, "Hey, were you on the ass end of the ship?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, did you sit on the, was your room at the back of the ship?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Why not?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I just didn't realize that there was rooms on the back end of the ship." He goes, "No, you understand, the best rooms are at the back of the ship." I'm like, "You got to be kidding, really?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Next time you go on a cruise, you got to get the room at the back end of the ship." He goes, "Now you're going to pay a lot for that room, but the experience is totally different." So I'm like, "All right. Next time I go on a cruise, let's call it a year and a half later, I tell my wife we're going to get on the back end of the ship." And I think it was $7,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 more than the room I had the last time I was on a cruise. And, now you have a suite where you have bedrooms, not a room, right? And I'm like, this opened my eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going on a cruise again without sitting on the back end of the ship, right? Well, yeah, and that's like flying first class, right? What you fly first class now, right? And so what's fun, like your experience and my experience, is you have certain things that you say, I'm never going to not film. I'm always going to film my take-up, or I'm never going to mow my grass. You start realizing as you become more successful in things that you do, that you don't ever want to go back to certain ways you used to think. And that's a motivator for me. Like, even doing the business now for over 20 years and having this big team, and have made a tremendous amount of money over the years, you just keep thumping it, because you're like, you know what? I want to keep living this fantastic life. And that's a big motivator to keep moving forward.
Yeah. One of the things that some of the coaching I do now, I talk about, the importance to understand the opportunity in front of you. I have a suspicion that you probably didn't get a real heavy doctor's degree or anything like that.
My doctorate is a high school diploma.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much true with me.
Yeah. School of Hard Knocks. That's mine.
Yeah. I try to get to through some junior college, and then I couldn't even afford that. So, it gets you going, but, and then that makes you feel a certain way too, and then all of a sudden you see an opportunity to have, the ass end of the cruise, or first, and you see that opportunity and you go, oh. And if you miss that perception of what an opportunity it is to get into a business where you have unlimited, and one of the things I do is I go through the average incomes of doctors and accountants and lawyers, and show that here's a business without all that formal education that you have to pay for, and then pay back at some point in time, right? If you get in college loans, and that you enter this business with an opportunity to change your life, send your kids to great schools and take trips, do things like that. Don't miss that opportunity. Don't let that go by, or never complain again that you never had the chance, because this is that chance.
Yeah. What bothers me, even as I coach people today within my team, because that's all, I just coach people on my team, but I think about how great my life has been through real estate. And I look at people and I'm just like, man, why don't you want to show up on time? Why don't you want to do this work? Why don't you want to provide a really great life for your kids and your wife? Why wouldn't you want to have a house of your dreams and drive a car of your dreams and have money in the bank and the feeling of total freedom in your life? Like, and why are we so stuck in who we have been versus who we can be? And it's to me, like, I look at it's when you talk about flying first class, right? Like, to me, the reward of hard work is living a life of total abundance where you can jump on a first class flight. You don't care how much the airline ticket is, right? My wife and I just were in Mexico last week, and we had this house on the ocean, and it wasn't cheap. And, you look at this going, man, what an amazing life you have from you as me. I have a high school diploma. Barely. My name's on the diploma, so I'm not sure how that worked out. Yeah, there's probably family members that might watch this and go, hey, I know what he's talking about. But sometimes they just give you a diploma to say, get that kid out of school. We don't want to see him back. Right. But
I will give you this if you promise not to come back.
Yeah. Promise you'll never contact us. You won't show up to any of the reunions, which is fair. But you look at it all and just go, real estate gives so many people without an education an opportunity. And what I love, I was sharing this with somebody when I was the other day when I was talking to somebody. It's like, if you think about real estate, what do we have to do? We have to get a real estate license. Costs a couple grand to get licensed and get in the board and whatever it is. We have to buy a sign or two if we're a listing agent. If you're not a listing agent, you don't got to buy a sign. You got to buy a lockbox. So let's call it $3,000 or $4,000. You just started a business. People don't even realize, like, when you start a business. A friend of mine, actually, it's my wife's cousin's husband, started a machine shop, and he was telling me about he had to buy a $500,000 piece of equipment in order. And I'm sitting there going, man, I'm a real estate agent. I had to buy a $35 corrugated sign, right, with a metal stick and putting this, and I can make $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. He had to buy a $500,000 machine to open his business.
Sign a lease, sign a long-term lease. So he's committed to that. Big risk.
Bricks and mortar. We don't have to have bricks and mortar. We can work from our home.
Right. He had to hire some employees.
Yes.
He had lead time on revenue.
Yes.
It's like, I use that example all the time. And I would say, Bernie Gallerani can drive down almost any street in Nashville, and 99% of every business he passes, he makes more money than they do. That's a great feeling.
Sure.
That's a great feeling. And they all have commitments. They all have. And so to me, it's like an interesting thing is that the reason I talk about the doctor, attorney, accountants and stuff with agents in the beginning is because, you entered almost instantly investing in yourself with a coach. I mean, and that's why I say, these guys spend fortunes to go to school 4 years. And so the question I always ask is, what school are you going to? What are you trying to learn now to have that opportunity? Maybe you couldn't have gone to school. Maybe you couldn't probably like us, we couldn't afford to go to nice universities and colleges and so forth. So, but that's no excuse now. Now you can enter into this business but you can't skip the learning. You can't skip the learning. And, one of the things I tell the owners that I consult with today is that the big difference between the days that I started my real estate company and today's real estate companies are that we were mostly coaching. Very interesting that you're very similar to that too. It's why you're having success. Real estate companies today outsource coaching. And so I tell people the coaches make more money than you do with your agents. What does that tell you that your business is missing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the agents need to come in. They need to, one, accept the great opportunity that is, commit to a learning experience, and have someone around them that's prepared to teach them, So
true.
So that's your path.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you look at any of the most successful people in life, take real estate out of it, every professional athlete has a coach. They've got many coaches, right? I mean, if you take LeBron James, who has a coach with the Lakers, but he has conditioning coaches and shooting coaches and endurance coaches, and he has someone that probably they work with him probably 5-6 days a week, and most professional, very successful people have these coaches that better than that a lot of the public doesn't see, right? But they're like, oh, well, he's a really talented or she's a really talented person. That's fair. There's probably some natural talent there, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes that aren't being seen. And for me, if you want to look at our production and in our life, there's a lot of people that are in the back side of that people don't see that have been major influences in any of the success that has happened, and not any of that couldn't have happened with the collective group that has been involved in my head. So sometimes people just try to come in and say, well, why am I not better? Well, who are you hanging out with? Who's coaching you? Who's training you? Who's having conversations with you? And if they're like, well, nobody, well, that explains why you're not moving fast enough.
So when you first decided to start selling and you were at Ferry, I know Ferry is a no nonsense, go after them. He was not a guy that, and I know Mike as well, and I knew Mike back when I had my company, and we were real farming based, and he was a lot less farming and grooming and taking time to get to build relationships. He was like, go get them right now. So it sounds like you were probably working for sell by owners and expires initially. Is that the way you started your prospect?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I was just the opposite of what you said you were, in that I was Mike Ferry of, we're hunters, right? My job, Mike's message, which I really appreciated. Remember, Roger, like, I grew up in a very interesting way of life, in that it was survival because of way my financial life was at home with my mom, the multiple amount of marriages my mom had. So you can imagine kind of the turmoil when your mom's married 5 times, those relationships are not really cohesive. Yeah. So if people want to use their mind about the turmoil that was in those walls of those men that were in my mom's life, and so it was a survival mode. And I had this, if you're going to eat, if my mom didn't have any money, and she was, we had, pancakes a lot of nights for dinner, and cheap things that allowed 4 kids to eat. So you grow up with that kind of, mentality. So when I hooked up with Mike, and he says, your job every day is to find a buyer and a seller to put together. And the better you can put a buyer and seller together, the more consistent you can do that, the more money you're going to make. And that would seem like a very simple concept to me. The reason I don't think he really pushed a lot towards cultivating lots of relationships or marketing in the manner that you had mentioned earlier is because he said there's somebody out there right now that wants to buy or sell real estate. You got to go find it, right? That was it. Go find it today, right? And so what I love what he said, though, and I'll share this with people that are watching this. He said, if your job's to find somebody that wants to buy or sell real estate today, one source you know for sure, 2 sources or 3 sources you know for sure that can do it. Number one, an expired listing. An expired listing that just came off the market is saying, I want to sell. So that's the connection. I want to sell today. And the agent that just had the listing couldn't get the job done. So what Mike would say is, if you learned how to communicate with that person and make them feel good, and that they were confident that you could cause it to sell, then you could get a listing today. And if you have a listing today and you price it correctly, you're going to get a buyer. And within 30 days, you're going to get paid. And then how many times can you do that throughout the week? And though that was the mentality. So for the world that I lived in with Mike, and still living with Mike, I'm still coaching with Mike Ferry. I'm actually personally coached by Mike Ferry. I just spoke with him actually today. I get a chance to spend a lot of time with Mike, and he's been an amazing mentor and very loyal to everything that Mike does. But I bought so far into that concept that said, I don't have to wait for someone to call me if I go out and actually call them. If I find them, and I love what Mike says, he goes, what number is greater? The number of people that you know, or the number of people that you don't know? And it's the number of people that you don't know, right? So he's like, is everybody calling you? Is your phone ringing off the hook with opportunities to come list their home? Or do you have to call them because they don't know who you are? And I was like, no, I got to call them. Great. Well, then if you call all these expired listings that come off the market today, let's just say there's 20, 30, 40, and you say the right things and you convince them and they invite you over to their house, what are the chances you're going to get a listing if you say the right things? Well, pretty good. If you say the right things and you price it correctly, you can get paid in 30 days, right? So what happens if you do it on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, Friday, and you do it the next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Why can't you sell a home every day? Well, I can. Well, then just go do that. And so that was the hunting mentality. And the hunting mentality was, I can't be afraid to talk to people. I just got to learn the scripts and the dialogues. Once I do it enough, I get some confidence. Once somebody says yes to me and I can put a buyer and seller together, once I can get paid, I didn't have to repeat that. And then I have to keep repeating that and getting better. And then that's how we got to where we are today. And then that is just continue to keep practicing your skill, staying disciplined and committed to your craft, and you can sell a lot of homes. And it's not easy. It's, as Mike says, it's really a simple business. Real estate we overcomplicate it.
I tell people that it's really simple. This business is exactly what Mike says. You need a buyer and a seller, and they don't know each other. You got a chance to have value. It's pretty simple. You manage information about people, and you sell your credibility to people. I mean, that's fundamental into what you do. They got to trust you somehow, and you develop that through, like you said, your dialogue, things that you say, the way you carry yourself, and so forth. And then I said that your income's always directly related to how many people are knowing you, trusting you, and no one's ever going to do business with you if they don't know you. So, you just got to like I said, it's pretty basic. Pretty basic.
It's pretty basic, but it isn't easy. And I would say that the hardest part about real estate is ourselves, our conditional thinking. Like, see, when someone shows up in your life, Roger, or someone shows up in my life in real estate, they're bringing every belief system with them. And it's that belief system that causes the havoc between the level of success and lack of. And if they're not open enough to changing, you have to be humble enough to say, this way of thinking isn't going to get me my ultimate result. Think about how hard that is, right? Especially as we get older, to go, I have to learn something new, and I have to be told that the way I'm thinking isn't going to work for a long-term success in real estate, and be able to push that down and try to be open to learning something new. It's really hard for people to do. And unless you can do that, you're going to be stuck in your same reality of what you had before you got here.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, I think. Your mindset and how you think, it's so critical, so much more important than, I remember my son one time came to me and he asked me about, he's maybe in high school at the time, and he says something about accounting, and he wanted to understand accounting a little better. And I go, what are you worried about accounting for right now? Let's think about how you think, how you look at the world, how you perceive, this value system that you talk about, this worldview, and you go after it. Well, so today, now you evolved into different ways of lead generation. And today, when you bring someone into your group today, do you still have them expires and for sale by owners a lot, or what are you thinking in today's world?
Well, unfortunately, as I became a team owner and started to understand how difficult it was to get people to do the work that I did. And so my original thought, and I'm sharing this with you and anybody who watches this, was I'm going to take the things that I learned from MFO and I'm going to teach that to other people. And then I'm going to coach them through that process as I was coached through that process. And then support them in financial means of, getting signs and lock boxes and coaching them to get paid, right? Through the process and hiring their staff and having closing coordinators and transaction coordinators. And that was the original thought and plan. And then I realized that people don't want to do it. And it's sad. It was a little sad because I thought, man, this is where the money is. And yet people just don't want to do it. And so I evolved into what's the best way I could serve an agent to want to be a part of my group. And that was, they wanted leads. And as we know in the world of real estate today and 2025 is that everybody's building teams and everyone wants lead distribution and all that kind of stuff. So I've been buying leads for years and years. I didn't just realize this in 2025, but so it's the Zillows, the Realtor.coms, the PPC leads. We do lots of different home evaluation kind of widget things that people could click on. And so my company today provides about 2,200 leads a month that come into the organization. And then that is all scrubbed through an ISA program, agents, ISA folks that we have work as employees here. And they convert those into appointments, the ISA team does. And then those appointments are set. Let's just say tomorrow at 4:00, we'll have an agent meet you at the door. And then the agent then meets the client at the door, opens the door, works with the client, and then writes the contract. And then it goes into the process of the TCs, the listing managers, if it's a listing taken. So that's the buyer side. The listing side, I do a lot of marketing today. So I do a lot of TV and radio, billboards, things like that. So I get a lot of come list me calls. And I have a team that is a team of 6 that's on that team. And so all of those leads that come in, then same thing, pre-scrubbed, appointment set, and then those are all going to those particular agents that are on that team. So it's more of evolved around, I do have some agents that do call expireds, but very few. Most of the entire team basically takes the leads that the company provides.
Right. So you're probably not hiring a lot of Bernies.
Well, most people don't want to do the work that I did, and right, and so where my reality came to where I came to face with the reality, and this is very transparent with our call today, is I never looked at the world that I did as being difficult, like the prospecting, the staying committed. I was on the phones 5 hours a day, every day, 5 days a week. And then every other Saturday, every other Sunday. And so I actually enjoyed the hunting. Like I loved the art of the hunt. I loved having somebody say, no, and me handling those objections and repeating and approving and making them feel really good and saying, okay, I'll see you Tuesday at 4:00, and then go over and get a contract signed. And I'm like, that to me was hunting, right? Given a buffalo or a deer to run away from me and you're hunting it down, and right. And to me, that was the thrill of the work that I did.
You could see that victory and put a smile on your face and say, I won. And that victory included all the losses, all the no's. It was like one game and I won.
It was a game. Well, it was a game. And it was a game that I actually thrived in because I felt empowered by the process of the no's to the yeses. Like I literally, like people say, well, how did you handle the rejection? I never heard the rejection. I only heard that I hadn't said anything yet that made them feel good enough to say yes. I don't hear a no. I just said my value proposition hasn't been heard yet, right?
That goes back to looking at yourself again and saying, what did I say wrong? How could I say it differently? How do I keep getting better, as opposed to that guy's not motivated, or he's a flake, or he's a whatever. You're always looking back at you and saying, I stay in control by accepting I didn't say the right thing yet.
Yeah, but I didn't learn quickly. It took me many years to learn the right thing. And the right thing became very simple for me, in that no matter how much rejection that I got on that call, as long as I stayed patient and I used the line of this, Roger, I really appreciate what you're saying and how you're feeling. And it certainly makes a lot of sense that you would feel this way. And yet, Roger, I was going to ask you this one question before I hang up, and that is, if you were 100% sure I could have your home sold in the next 7 days, would you want to learn more about it? And that would be my clothesline every single time. And I'd have to build up into that, into rapport building. I couldn't use that in the beginning. I had to have enough rapport. And so I had to learn the voice inflections and the tonalities, and then I would just continue to keep edging my way closer. Right. And it was people that, well, I've used that and I don't use it. Well, it's not about using that. It's you don't come out of the gun with that. You have to work into where they're listening to you, because they're not always going to listen to you. But at the very end, you kind of have them in the very end, and their tonalities in line with yours, or your tonalities in line with theirs. Your voice inflections are right. You can feel them coming down a little bit in their emotion, frustration, or whatever it might be. And then you come with this very empathetic saying, I totally appreciate what you're saying. And gosh, I feel bad for you and that you had to go through all this. And I really wish you had sold your home. And yet, I mean, you would owe it to yourself, Roger, if you knew 100% without a shadow of a doubt, if you absolutely knew that I could have a buyer in your property in the next 7 days or less, would you want to hear how I can do it? And then almost every time they say, well, sure. Or, well, what makes you think you can do that? And you start weighing in. And so the art of the craft is understanding that the no's aren't really no's. They're not really no's. They're just, I don't hear yet why I should say yes. And most people say, well, it's just no's. It's not just no's.
It's why, and I say that to people all the time, is that why would anyone trust you? You have to earn that trust, and you'll do it through a conversation. Like you said, that the back and forth, the empathy, the feeling that you move together sometime, and all of a sudden, they start to feel that there's something about you they can trust. That's why I say you sell credibility. You manage the information, but
and I'll say, I would say things like, because my team then would, at that point, we're selling 300 or 400 homes a year. And I'd say things like, Roger, if I could actually go show you step by step this 21 plan of action that actually closed 427 homes like yours last year, would you want to know how I did it? Would you want to have that plan at all on your property? And, because I could hear your frustration, see it, and certainly can be empathetic to it. You are a smart guy, Roger. So one thing you're going to know for sure is if I get to your house and I'm giving you some hoopla, you're smart enough. You're not going to buy into that, obviously, correct? I just want to be a straight shooter with you. It'll take me about 15 minutes. I'm going to show you this plan that closed 427 homes last year. Then I'll let you just make all the decisions whether or not you want to get involved with that. Is that fair? And then okay, that's fair. Boom. Once you got the appointment, you show up in your suit, your shoes are polished, you got your nice car, it's all polished up, and you're walking in like a professional. You're totally separating yourself from everybody else when you show up like that. And that is where you win it. You don't just win it over the phone, but you win it in person, belly to belly. And if people can get to belly and they do it the right way, they're going to win it most of the time. They just don't spend enough time learning the craft. They just want everyone to say yes right away. And what I said to many agents who get frustrated and upset, I'm like, listen, this isn't going to be any easier for you than it was for everyone else that tried it. You're going to struggle like everybody else. It's not going to be easy for you because it wasn't for me. But the patience pays off.
And you don't make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for easy.
Well, and here's great, because I've made millions of dollars selling real estate. And I'll say this too. To make lots and lots of money, not everybody has the fortitude to stay patient enough to learn the craft. And it's not going to happen for you because it didn't happen for anybody else that I know that made millions and millions of dollars. But if you want to make millions and millions of dollars and you know somebody who's made millions of dollars, you have to be have a high level respect, because anybody that pulls this off just was patient enough to walk the steps. But what's really cool is you make 80,000, then a 120, then a 280, then a 220, and you build, and as you keep learning a 7-figure opportunity annually, you earn more and more money every time, and even that in itself is worth it.
Are you naturally a competitive guy?
Yes.
Yeah. And what are you competing against?
Me.
You. Always you. I agree.
I have to because, it's interesting, and this will be a fun conversation. Mike talks about complacency, right? And he and I've had really in-depth conversations about the word complacency, and he has said for us for years, complacency is the disease of the human spirit. And so I've asked him to go deep on this for the years that I've worked with him. And this is what I have found. You bring an agent in, and they had a $75,000 job, and they decide they want to become a real estate agent, and you teach them how to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when they get to $75,000, they kind of stop working hard. And so in my conversations with Mike, he says, you have to understand, you're only going to work to your level of pain. And once there's comfort in that income, your then growth usually slows down. Right. And so any time in my life through real estate where I was making several $100,000 a year and I wanted to make more and I was stalling, Mike would pull me from this, and he would say, the problem with you is you're comfortable, you're complacent, and you're being way too analytical in this process. You're You're not fearful enough of not having more. And so many conversations with him, let's just call it 10, where I started realizing one thing, in that every time I felt uncomfortable, I would stall myself in growth. And what Mike would say is, the uncomfortable feeling you feel in your stomach, we all know it, Roger, you have it, I have it, we're competitive people. But when you have the feeling of uncertainty is growth. It's not fear, it's growth. And so then you have to ask yourself, if I'm feeling satisfied and I'm feeling complacent, like things are going really well, I'm making good money, I've learned that is actually not a good thing for me. I don't ever want to feel like where I'm at is where I'm going to stay, right? I love this saying. I learned it from my friend up in Dayton, Ohio. And she said, I'm very blessed of where I am, but I don't want to stay here very long. I want to continue to keep growing as a human. And so what I've learned to grow my businesses and because I own title companies, mortgage company today. I have a construction house flipping business that I'm doing. Anyways, all of those things all came with uncertainty, fear, anxiety. And I'm like, this is growing, man. This is just growing as a human being. And so money is no longer, I don't need the money. I just want to keep growing as a human. And that is where the competitive side comes in. It says, how far can I take this? Because it's not about paying my bills. That's not the focus anymore. The focus is, how far can I take me?
Right. Yeah. I talk about a lot of stuff like, first of all, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's that edge of being uncomfortable that's the growing thing that you're talking about. And it's always a breakthrough, whether it's sports. I always used to joke about water skiing or snow skiing. You learn, the most you learn in either of those sports is just the moment before you fail. And right at that edge is where you learn a lot about how to be better at skiing,
Yeah.
And so it's I often tell these guys that, the owners, is that you can't solve a problem someone doesn't have. So if these agents don't start reaching to that limit, that goal, they want to get to the place where they're uncomfortable. And if you can't get them excited about being there, it's hard to get growing. And getting back to what we were talking about early in the conversations when I first started, our system was really about coaching. My whole thing was, I'm not good with new people, go learn how to do contracts. Come here and I'll get you from here to here. And I always found it was really interesting, because when someone bumped from one spot to the other, they had a tendency to just never go back. That mental breakthrough when you could actually get to some other plateau. Mm-hmm. But man, that second plateau, to get them another spot, that was a really, really difficult transition. Yeah. They get so comfortable with the world around them, and people in their world are comfortable being in that world,
I asked Mike, it was last year, I was having a conversation with him, let's just call it 10 months, 12 months ago, something like that. And I was walking in through my business, and my business does well. We sell 600-700 homes a year, and the company does really well financially. So I asked Mike, I said, Mike, I feel like the last few years that I'm just doing the same business. And he says, well, let's talk about that. He says, let's go back 5, 6, 7 years ago. I said, okay. And he says, do you remember the risk that you took? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, let's talk about your income and let's talk about your risk. So we walk through that, and he says, you're pretty well financially, you're doing well financially. And I'm like, yeah, life's really good. And he says, well, this is the problem. He says, you're comfortable with the way things are, and you're not really pushing the risk level at a high enough level to really cause yourself to be uncomfortable. And I'm like, God, he's so right. Like God, you look at this, and he said to me, he goes, I want to say this to you. It's okay that you're okay. So I don't want you to feel like I'm pushing you in a way that says I have to take a risk. He says, but if you ask me the question, then you have a concern, and I want to answer the reason why. I'm not telling you that I think that it's a problem. I'm just saying to you that you probably have a desire in you to want more, which is why you're asking the question. And I'm going to give you the solution, but you got to take the risk. And he said, so I want you, if you really want to grow, you got to go back in that uncomfortable feeling in your belly where you're going, oh crap, here I go again, right? I'm kind of rolling.
It's a lot like saying, you're a sprinter and you just broke the world record, what comes next? Are you going to be okay with? Are you going to be okay with that, or do you want to take another shot at the world record?
Somebody's about to break the world record if you're not going to do it again.
Yeah, someone's going to do it. Do you want to be the guy to do it again? And if you do, because it's all that old saying about it's a journey, not a destination. It's that makes you happy. It's so true. And I find even lately talking to some people about this idea that as soon as a person feels like they have a plan to get them from here to there, they're happy. They haven't done it. It's just the plan to get them from there sort of soothes them and gets them, happy. I get a coach. I get, I decide I'm going to go work out. I decide I'm going to lose weight. Whatever it is, people, when they decide they're going to lose weight, are happy, and they haven't lost a pound yet. It's like, and then as you go along the journey, it's terrific. And then you get to a certain weight and you go, crap. Is that it? I mean,
I thought there was more to I thought there was more to this.
Exactly. Well, I tell you, I appreciate the insight on this stuff. There's a couple things I want to go before, if you got a few more minutes.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'd love to go, because one of the things that I was impressed with when we met with your group is it's that the fundamental part of any kind of business that we're in, brokerage particularly, is that you meet and you follow up. You meet and you follow up and you present. You have dialogue. So there is a structure to moving people from one way of thinking to another, but probably the biggest, I think I would say that maybe the biggest drawback or the biggest failure I see in people is their inability to stay in touch, to follow up, to continue to not let leads or potential leads get out of their universe somewhere. And when we were together, I remember your group, you have a lead distribution system because you're buying leads, a lot of internet stuff. And that's worked out really well for you. Well, I think, is that correct?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many agents tell me, oh, they're lousy, they don't work. And yet I know they've worked well. And so when I looked at your system, I discovered that you guys would go through all your leads as a group every day, or every other day, or something to that effect, right? Yeah. I know that you would meet. Your team would meet with your sales manager, and you guys would go through leads. And
we still do that.
In effect, and you still do that. And it really, it's the science, it's the art of the business, is that follow-up, that discussion about it. How do you move this person further down the road? Are those the kind of conversations you're doing daily now?
Yeah. So every agent has a lead audit every week, and they have to go through every lead they received, and they have to make so many phone calls every week. If they can't reach that person, to convert them from a qualified to another stage, a nurture, hot, or whatever it might be. And we have like different follow-up scheduled, like, every 30 days and 60 days, 90 days kind of things. But anyways, so every week, a lead auditor on our team, there's two different ones, they will have a 15-minute audit time with each one of those agents, and they go through every lead, and they go through every amounts of calls that have been made, every text message, every email. So it's time consuming, but the challenge with it, if you don't do it, and this is why your agents or some agents say, well, this stuff doesn't really work or whatever. It does work. And if you're holding, let me spin this a different way.
That's why someone like you keeps spinning more and more and more, because that's the ingredient, that follow-up, that audit, that lead audit. I love that term, actually.
Yeah, it's a lead audit. So, the IRS audits us, don't they? Occasionally, sometimes businesses get audited, right? They're like, hey, let me see that you've done this correctly, or we're gonna hit you with a penalty, right? It's the same thing. If you audit somebody, if I know that my agent, if I knew someone was auditing me in my business, If Mike Ferry said, hey, listen, every week you're going to send me your books and I'm going to go through it, then I'm going to knock you on the head for everything you overspent.
Right.
I would probably stop overspending, right? If somebody was going to get a lead audit in my company and they weren't doing the processes in which they were taught correctly, they're going to said, hey, listen, if you continue to keep behaving this way, I'm not going to buy you leads. Each agent in my company gets somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000 worth of leads that we pay for each month. So it's in a sense me paying an agent, and I try to put everything in the value of cash. So it's like me handing Roger, if you're an agent on my team, it's me handing you $5,000 or $8,000 a month worth of leads, and then you just frivolously spending the money and not really doing anything positive with it, right? And I'm like, hey, I got to get a return on this $5,000 to $8,000, so I'm going to give you, $5,000 to $8,000 to do this gamble of lead conversation. I just need you to turn that back into dollars, right? And so So Mike said something to me years and years ago, and there's a lot of value in this. And he said, anyways, I won't go into the detail of how I got here, but in the end, it came down to this. He goes, Bernie, you have to understand this. We're all human beings. And because we're human, we have flaws. You have a flaw, I have a flaw, we all are flawed. And he said, so if you give an agent leads and the agent doesn't follow the system in which you laid out.
Right.
They're human beings. If a call comes in at night and they're having dinner with their spouse and they don't pick up the phone, you go, well, listen, your job was to pick up the phone. If they're with their kids, your job was to pick up the phone. If they're doing something with their family, it's like, yeah, I get it, you're with your family, but you're supposed to make these calls, right? And so what he says is that people have a life and they're flawed. We're flawed. We're human beings, right? Nobody's perfect. And so he said, but what isn't flawed is a system. And a system doesn't break, but people do. A system always picks up the phone. The system doesn't have emotions. The system is a system. And so he goes, what the problem is not the people, because the people are flawed. The problem is you don't have a system to support the investment and the accountability in which you're asking for it. I'm like, wow, I'm scratching my head going, all right, this is deep, right?
Yeah. It's
so he
system and accountability to that system.
Accountability to that system. So what you do is,
by the way, that's football coach. You talk to Belichick, and Belichick is like, you only have do your job. Do your job. Yeah. This is the system, the process.
Do your job. Next man up, right? You do your job or someone else going to. So what we did was we created this this agent getting a lead. And then within that, we created an ISA, right? That also gets the lead. So if the agent's with their spouse, the ISA works from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. So when that agent gets the lead, if the agent doesn't call the lead, the ISA calls it, and regardless of whether the agent calls it, it still belongs to the agent, but the ISA is backing up that call, right? It's on task. The ISA will call it, the agent will call it. So what happens is they're fighting back and forth for communication. Still belongs to the agent, right? So the lead is being called, and that was one system I created, right? And so I have it where if the ISA sets the appointment and the agent misses it, there's a fee associated that the agent has to pay because the agent's not doing their job, right? But it's still got the lead called. So I looked at it and said, well, I'm investing the money. I don't care if the agent's not doing their job. If they're doing their job, they're not paying the fee. If they're doing the job, they're not doing the job, they're paying the fee. And so I created that as a system. And then with the automated text messaging / AI capabilities today, those leads are being communicated through AI services, through drip systems. So the agent or the client is constantly being communicated with through the system process that the agent doesn't even know about on the back end. So to answer your question, we created a system because we knew that if we didn't, it would drive us nuts on the agent not doing their job. And I know that I'm flawed, so I don't always do the things I'm supposed to do. You don't always do the things you're supposed to do, but the system being managed correctly does what it's supposed to do, right? And that's exactly how this works. And so, yes, we have a very high conversion of leads that get converted in time. Most of our deals get converted with massive communication long term. I have 300,000 people in my database, and there's many people in there that communicated with us 2 years ago that our AIs are communicating with and our ISAs are the agents are even out of it. They're not even anymore. They forgot about that lead. So the ISAs are involved, the AI is involved, and pretty soon, boom, it resurfaces. When it resurfaces through something we sent it tags us, and then we're on the phone with them. Hey, by the way, I just wanted to see if you're looking to still buy or sell. We talked 2 years ago. And they're like, well, it's funny you asked me because I was actually just looking at properties recently. So we have all these triggers that help us convert at a higher rate.
Yeah, that's really, that is really impressive. I mean, it really is, and you manage it well. And so of all these leads that come in, let's say you have 1,000 leads that come in. And I don't know what your conversion rate is, but is it as high as 15%?
Depends on the lead source. So our Zillow stuff is obviously really high. If you take our averages across the board, it's 12.5%, but we have some agents that are converting at 40%, some at 25%, and then some at 7 or 8. So we're averaging at about 12.5 on across the board on that. Realtor.com is very similar. Some of our PPC stuff, though, it's 1%, which because of those costs, it makes sense financially. We can make a lot of money in those processes. So every source is different. It just depends the quality of that particular lead.
All right, so you have 1,000 leads overall. You'll convert 12.5%, which is a closed deal conversion.
Closed deal.
Of the 100, that's 125 transactions that are made out of the 1,000 leads. Of those 125, how many happen in the first 30 days of getting the lead, and how many happen, months or years later?
So the Zillow leads and the Realtor.com leads, about 65 to 70% of those will convert within the first 30 days, 30 to 45 days. There's a much smaller balance after about 90 days on those particular leads. On our PPC leads, most of those don't convert for 4 to 6 months.
And your PPC is?
My pay-per-click. So they could be me just marketing for, I'm advertising through social media on a property I listed, or just a URL, a link to a website to look for properties.
Google Ads or something.
Those are, so your Zillows and your Realtor.coms, for the most part, are more ready now type of people. Your PPC leads are more nurturing, as you were talking about earlier. That's typically about what we call a 4 to 6 month incubation process. We actually, it's a lower cost lead, so it costs us a lot less money than so a Zillow lead right now is costing us about $4,300 to convert a lead. So you're looking at $400 at, let's just call it 10%. So you're looking at about $4,000 a conversion, where a PPC lead converts for us at about $2,700. So it's half basically, let's just call it 60% of the cost of a PPC than it is. So we do better financially on a PPC lead. The challenge is it's more of a nurturing lead. So you have to have an agent or a system that's willing to stay with that lead for 4 to 6 months until that conversion happens.
Yeah, it's an interesting science, man.
It's a cheaper lead, though. I mean, you can get a whole bunch of them, but you got to have a lot of conversations. And the agents don't typically like to have we have a 1% conversion on that, Roger. Agents have to talk to 99 people to get one sale, but they might talk to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people to get one sale, because the conversion rate is 4 to 6 months. It takes a while. But once you get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, or let's call it thousands of people in your database, one agent has a couple thousand people in their database, you're going to start converting those like this after 4 to 6 months. But do they have the tenacity to stay in?
Yeah, you have to have the runway to get there.
Yes, you do. But it works, and it works really well. It's a cheaper lead. It costs less money. It's not as good it's not as good up front as a Zillow or Realtor.com, but it's as good in 4 to 6 months. So you have to have that runway.
Right. And how many of your transactions will be repeat customers or referral based rather than lead based?
Our referral business is about 35 to 38%. So that's repeat referral business from past clients. Zillow is about 26, 27%. Realtor.com is a smaller portion of that, probably about 17, 18%. And then our PPC leads are a fair portion of that. And then our COIs.
Well, I think the important thing about this conversation for people is just hearing you be able to recite those numbers?
Well, you have to know your numbers, right? I mean, I'm spending $1.5 million a year in, $1.5 million a year in lead distribution. And that doesn't even count the, $3 million a year it costs me to run the company before you make a profit. So when you look at all of this, you have to watch every single dollar. I mean, every dollar, that's why we do the lead audit, because we can't afford to continue to keep giving agents $5,000 or $8,000 worth of leads and have them not convert. So that's why everything is scrutinized that way.
Rod, our mutual friend, Rod, probably 10, 12, 15 years ago, he calls me up one day. He says, "Hey, Roger, are you available for lunch?" I go, "Sure." So we met. He says, "I have finally figured out how to take that next jump." And that next jump from him was going from $750 to $1 million. So he wanted to jump another $250,000 in income. Well, that was a third of what he had been making. It's a lot. It's a big jump. I mean, he wanted to jump more than 99% of people making the business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he sat down. He goes, he wanted to have lunch to talk about it. So we had lunch. He goes, "You figured it out." So I says, "Well, so what was the answer?" He goes, "Well, I was call it 20 people a day. And I was getting 18 leads I was calling 20 people a day, talking to 15.
Still a pretty good ratio.
He says, "I figured I needed to be talking to 20 a day, not making 20 calls a day."
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So he jumped that 15 and he added 5 contacts to it, which was a third, and his income jumped a full third, exactly what his increase was. But it's like his, and I try to explain this so often. First thing I told Rod is, I go, the genius in what you did was not your decision. It was that you knew your numbers well enough to know how to increase it, right?
Yeah, that's why it's predictable. You can create a predictable business when you know your numbers.
Exactly. And that's exactly what he did. A third increase because he made a third more calls. And I'm oversimplifying this, of course, but that's the point. And
yeah,
and to see you be able to do that at scale is very impressive, man.
Well, you have to. I think that as a business owner, if anybody's considering starting a team or something, I think it's malpractice for your business. You probably go under if you don't know all your numbers, because the best thing, I think that Mike and I talk about this all the time. When you have a bad month or two or a quarter or whatever it is, it's really kind of the best thing for your business. I had earlier in the year, I lost about $105,000 on expenses versus revenue. And it's not uncommon to have a month where you're upside down $50,000-$80,000 because you have these fixed expenses you can't get out of, right? Leads and your agents aren't selling. But so that's not uncommon. I think as you run a company and you have bad months, you just, and you talk to a bunch of business owners are like, yeah, I lost, $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 last month or whatever. But what's great about those things though, is you get to go in and go, where am I spending money that I don't need to? Because sometimes when you're living on the fat of the hog, you just don't pay a lot of attention to where the money goes because you're bringing in so much of it. And when you have a bad month, you're like, oh, I'm slashing, right? And you go and you start going, why am I spending $37.50 on coffee a month? You're like, let's get rid of that, right? Yeah, Bernie, you just lost $100,000. Yeah, but that $37.50.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me feel better. It's back to that plan idea again. I'm not there yet, but it makes me feel like I'm on the the path to saving money. I got plenty of those.
I think it keeps you honest with your business, and I think if you don't know your numbers, you don't know where you should be. When you're making money and you're not paying attention, you're making money, but could you be making a lot more? Or what happens when you have a hiccup and you go down? If you don't know your numbers, you're going to go under. Right. So I think you just have to know your numbers. And so I can spout off, numbers in every category. I mean, Roger, every Zillow zip code I have in my system, and it tells me how much profit comes from every of the zip codes that I have and who I'm what zip codes are most profitable in. And there's a whole list of these Zillow zip codes and realtor.com zip codes. And I'm like, listen, in the last 6 months, we've lost, 17,500 on the zip code. We're getting rid of it. Let's go buy some other zip code. Right. And so just because you're making money on Zillow doesn't make you making money on all the zip codes, right? Like, oh, I made, let's call it I made $1 million last year on Zillow. It's like, yeah, but 5 of those zip codes, you lost 150 grand. You could have made $1,150,000 had you cut those other zip codes out. So I think that watching every single dollar as it comes in and out is critical.
Yeah. And to your point, and the point of the Rod story was that it's one thought, it's one decision that can make a radical change. If you don't know that and everything you're working on is gut feeling, it's hard to get to a good conclusion. Listen, man, I kept you for a long, long time, and I appreciate it. And if you tell me, to finish off here, tell me what you would advise someone that's just kind of starting in the business, or they're feeling a sense of floundering right now, but, I'm coming along, and you're going to give us 2-3 points that's going to change my life. It's a lot of responsibility, Bernie. You got to change my life here.
It's easy as coaching my own people, what I feel like I see that holds people back. Number one, expect it to be difficult, because the business isn't hard. You changing is hard. And you're always in a business that is changing, so you have to always be changing, right? And so you're entering a business. I mean, look at the world. You telling me the world hasn't changed in the last 5 years? Every year it's different. When everyone's got an opinion, everyone's looking at the world differently, and everyone runs scared of who's doing what and why they're doing it and whatever. I think that you have to come into the real estate business and understand one thing. You're probably not going to be successful doing it the way you think it's going to be done. You have to be able to have somebody in your corner to tell you what to do. And you have to be open to being coachable. And that is probably the biggest challenge, Roger, that I have, is that people coming in and not wanting to do it the way that... Think about this for a second. I was in the top, let's just call it the top 20 highest producing RE/MAX agents in the country. And I could have people in my office and go, listen, this is what you have to do in order to just be more successful than anybody else. And because they don't know how to change, they're so stuck on who they are that they're just like, oh, I'm not going to do that. It's like, okay, that's okay, but don't be mad when you're not successful, right? In all the people that I've hung out with, every single realtor that I've ever met, everyone that I've ever met that succeeds at a high level, whether they're Mike Ferry or they're Brian Buffini or they're, Rogers clients or whatever, I've never met one that didn't look me in the face and go, man, I was totally different. I had to change as a human being in order to become successful. So be open to change, be open to coaching, and be open to hard work, because the real estate business isn't that hard. You changing is what's most difficult. You're not fighting the real estate business. You're fighting you. That's the only thing you're doing, is you're fighting what craziness goes on in our own head, right? We're fighting that. The only person in the middle between survival and having the goals and the things that you want accomplished in your life, the only difference is what goes on inside of this crazy conditional thinking that we have. Because there are many people, and I followed these people, and there's many people that are more successful than I am in real estate. Lots and lots and lots and lots of people. And there's lots and lots of people that haven't had that success yet. And what? About people that have been more successful? Oh, yeah, for sure. Lots and lots. There's people out there that are amazing people. But here's the thing. If I think I have it figured out and they're doing this and I'm doing this, I'm screwed. I'm never going to ever get to where I want to go if I ever believe I have anything figured out. I always got to be humble in that I only know what I know, but they actually know more, and I want to get to where they're at. And if anybody gets into real estate business, think they have it figured out, they don't got it figured out. We got to be open-minded to change and growing as a human being and giving up who we are and allowing ourselves to grow as a human being by accepting the knowledge that a successful person that is accomplishing what you're accomplishing is sharing with you what you want to share. If you don't want to do it, that's okay. But it's not because you can't do it. It's just that you're choosing not to do it because you don't want to change.
Yeah, great advice. One of the first things I talk about in the coaching stuff I do is I ask a question: what's the most important subject that you think you have to master to be great at real estate. And it'll be financing, prospect, and to me, the answer is always you. You will be the hardest course you take. You'll be the hardest subject to master. And if you do, you're gonna get there. If you don't, you don't. But, well, man, you certainly have done it. And I got to tell you, our show is called Ambitious Broker, and you're one of the tops. And it's impressive.
Man, I'm just learning, brother. And I'm just learning. I've never made it. I'm never going to make it. I'm going to die figuring it out as a human being. I've never made, I don't know, man. There's so many people that have done so many. I know a guy in real estate today, and he's got all his hands in all sorts of stuff. He's making $1 million a month net. And I'm friends with the person, and I'm in awe over him. Like, not in awe over him, like, in his ability to continue to keep growing as a human. And, he has the same conversation. It's like, Bernie, you just got to get this brain right. You're like in the way of your thinking. It's like, okay, and it's not easy to dump the old self and try to create the new self, right?
Took years to get you there.
But you know what? Here's the thing. If I keep trying, I know that I feel good about myself. If I don't at least try and I give up, I'm going to feel pretty bad about myself. So I'm just going to keep trying to be a better human being in the real estate business and coaching, helping people. And, yeah, none of us have it all figured out, right?
I'm hoping as in my later years of real estate that I keep helping people. It's sort of like the payback time of my life. And I think I did that by bringing you on today. If people sit and listen to you a little bit, they'll learn a little something, make me feel good about myself. I helped. You should feel good about you helped. And so I'm gonna discontinue this thing. We're gonna talk for another couple minutes. Give me 1 second to stop this.
Awesome, buddy.
But thank you online here.
Hey, no, you're welcome. Thank you.